Chapter 2. Christianity calls for love. Racism is fueled by fear. Christianity calls for love. One of the most powerful psychological roots of racism is fear. Many people think racism begins with hatred, but psychologically speaking, hatred is often the result of a much earlier process. The process frequently starts with fear, uncertainty, or perceived threat. Humans are wired to quickly assess danger. This survival mechanism has helped our species endure for thousands of years. The problem is that our brains can sometimes misidentify what is actually dangerous. When people encounter individuals who look different, speak differently, worship differently, or come from unfamiliar cultures, the brain can unconsciously register them as other. If that feeling of difference is reinforced by negative stories, stereotypes, media portrayals, or community beliefs, fear begins to grow. Psychologists sometimes refer to this as perceived threat. The threat may not even be real. People may fear losing jobs, losing social status, losing cultural influence, crime that they associate with a group, change itself, the unknown. Fear does not require facts to survive. It only requires uncertainty. Fear changes how people think. When someone is afraid, their brain prioritizes protection over understanding. This creates several psychological effects. 1. Fear reduces curiosity. Instead of asking, "Who is this person?" people begin asking, "Well, can this person hurt me?" The goal shifts from understanding to self-protection. 2. Fear encourages stereotyping. The brain likes shortcuts. If people are afraid, they often stop evaluating individuals and start relying on broad generalizations. Instead of seeing a unique person, they see a label. 3. Fear narrows empathy. Empathy requires emotional openness. Fear tends to close people off emotionally. The more afraid someone becomes, the harder it is for them to imagine another person's experiences. 4. Fear creates confirmation bias. Once fear takes hold, people begin noticing information that confirms their fears and ignoring information that contradicts them. One negative experience becomes proof. 1,000 positive experiences are overlooked. 5. Fear can become anger. Psychologists have observed that fear often transforms into anger because anger feels stronger and more empowering. People may not even realize that beneath their hostility lies anxiety and insecurity. What appears to be hatred may actually be fear wearing armor. Jesus consistently challenged fear-based thinking. One of the most repeated commands throughout Scripture is, "Do not be afraid." This is psychologically significant. Fear tells us, protect yourself first. Love says, consider the other person too. Fear asks, how are they different from me? Love asks, how are we alike? Fear focuses on threat. Love focuses on value. Fear magnifies distance. Love creates connection. Love expands the circle of concern. Psychologists often describe love as an emotion that broadens perspective. When people genuinely care about others, they become more willing to listen, understand, forgive, cooperate, see complexity. Racism shrinks the circle of moral concern. Love expands it. This is why Jesus' command to love one's neighbor is so psychologically transformative. It forces people to move beyond instinctive tribalism. Love humanizes. Fear says, they are different. Love says, they are human. Fear says, they might threaten me. Love says, they matter too. Fear creates walls. Love builds bridges. This doesn't mean Christians are called to be naive or ignore real wrongdoing. It means they are called to evaluate people as individuals, rather than condemning entire groups because of fear. Imagine a woman named Sarah. Sarah grew up in a working-class neighborhood. Her parents are kind people, but throughout her childhood, she repeatedly heard warnings about a particular racial group. The messages are subtle. Be careful around them. They cause trouble. Don't go to those neighborhoods. You never know what they're capable of. No one uses openly hateful language, but fear is quietly planted. Over the years, Sarah absorbed these beliefs. The strange thing is that she has almost no meaningful interaction with anyone from that group. Her fear is based largely on stories rather than personal experience. As an adult, Sarah watches news reports that repeatedly highlight crimes committed by people from that racial group. Each story reinforces what she already believes. Her brain begins connecting the group with danger. She notices every negative story. She overlooks positive ones. Without realizing it, fear becomes her lens for interpreting reality. One winter evening, Sarah's car breaks down on a lonely road during a snowstorm. Her phone battery dies. Temperatures are dropping rapidly. She becomes frightened. Several cars pass without stopping. Then a pickup truck pulls over. A man steps out. To Sarah's surprise, he belongs to the very racial group she has feared most of her life. Her heart races. All her assumptions rush into her mind. But the man simply asks, "Are you okay?" He spends nearly an hour helping her. He calls a tow truck. He lets her warm up inside his vehicle. He refuses any payment. Before leaving, he says, "I hope someone would do the same for my wife if she was stranded." Driving home later, Sarah feels unsettled. Her fear says one thing. Her experience says otherwise. The man she was taught to fear acted with extraordinary kindness. For weeks she has been thinking about him. The image doesn't fit her stereotypes. Psychologists call this a disconfirming experience, an encounter that challenges deeply held assumptions. Several months later, Sarah begins reading the Gospels more seriously. One passage strikes her deeply. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then another. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. She realizes something uncomfortable. Jesus never permitted her to fear entire groups of people. In fact, he consistently moved toward people others avoided. She starts asking herself, how can I claim to follow Jesus while allowing fear to determine whom I value? The question lingers. Over time, Sarah begins volunteering at a community outreach program. She works alongside people from many racial backgrounds. She hears their stories. She learns about their struggles. She meets parents worried about their children. Workers are trying to support families, young people pursuing dreams, people who laugh, cry, hope, and suffer just as she does. The more relationships she forms, the weaker her fear becomes. What changed? The people did not change. The information available to Sarah did not dramatically change. What changed was her relationship to them. Fear thrives at a distance. Love grows through connection. Years later, Sarah reflects on her transformation. She realizes she never truly hated anyone. What she carried for years was fear, and that fear had prevented her from seeing people clearly. As she learned to love people rather than fear them, the prejudice lost its power.